Is this the worst series to hit Kenyan screens? Well, a lot of Kenyans seemed to think so. So I'm going to tell you whether they were right or whether they were just exaggerating. I'm talking about the recent installment of the Shuga franchise, Shuga Mashariki. And this is my honest review. With that being said, welcome to the Raw Pod with me, Renee Were. Let's get real and raw. Before we get into the review, remember to follow the Ropod on all our socials. We're literally called the Ropod everywhere you can think of. And remember to also like and share this episode and leave your comments. I really want to know what you thought, if at all you watched the series, and I also want to know what you think of this review. So, before we get into Shuga Mashariki, I want to give you a little background of the Shuga franchise, where it started till now. So, Shuga first aired in November of 2009, and it was by the MTV Networks Africa, MTV Staying Alive Foundation, in partnership with PEPFAR and the Kenyan government. So the whole idea was to spread the message on responsible sexual activity, especially among the youth. And the first series had a very all-star cast for that time. You had the Lupita Nyong'o as one of the leading characters. You had Nick Mutuma, you had Antonio Sol, and a plethora of other actors like Valerie Kimani. So it was a big cast back then. And then after that, we had the second season, still within the Kenyan version. So we had the second season in around 2011, 2012 huko. We had season 2 of the Shuga series. And I remember it starred Kina Shikskapienga. I remember this is now where Kina Brenda Wairimu came in. You had Avril, the musician, also cast in the series. And yeah, it was a good one. It was not as great as the first one, but yeah, it did the job nonetheless. And when I tell you, I have been there from the very beginning. I kid you not. I watched the very first Shuga. I was there when it first aired back in 2009. Now, granted, I had no business watching. I had no business. I had absolutely no business because I was still very young. And the age I was, really shouldn't have been watching these things. But I did it anyway. And I have literally followed this series till now. I've literally grown with it, and I have learned so much from Shuga. It has taught me so much about safe sex and STDs and HIV and just how to navigate your sexual health as a young person. So yeah, when I tell you I've been there from day one, mimi ni day one fan was Shuga. So after it had 2 seasons in Kenya, it shifted to Nigeria, and we got Shuga Niger in around 2013. So from there, we proceeded to have like 5 seasons of Shuga Niger from 2013 to around 2018, yeah. I think the last Shuga Niger was 2020, 2021, around there. But the Nigerian version has very many seasons, around 5 or 6. Yeah. And then along the way, in 2017, we had the South African version known as Back Down South. So from 2017, we had Back Down South. The first season aired in 2017. The second season aired in 2019. And the third season, which is the latest one, aired in 2023. And then we now have Shuga Mashariki, which is the latest installment in the Shuga franchise. So last year, we got the announcement that we were having a new Shuga series and that it was returning to Kenya, where it all began. And since I am a really huge fan of the series, and being that I watched it from the first one, I was very excited because all these years I've been thinking, na mbona Shuga hairudi Kenya? Mbona hairudi Kenya na huku ndo ilianzia? It's high time it came back. So my prayers were answered, and after more than 10 years, the series returned to Kenya. We got the news that they were casting for Shuga Mashariki, and this year around May, the series was rolled out. And Kenyans had a lot to say about this series. People had opinions. And today we are going to find out whether those opinions are valid, because most people didn't really like the series. They didn't really resonate with it because of whatever reason. But in this episode, we're going to find out whether their critique was valid or not. So let's get into it. So Shuga Mashariki was directed by three Kenyans, June Dinya, Mkaiwawi Mwakaba, and Likarion Wainaina, who is best known for his work on Supermodo and the very, very popular series Anti-Boss, which aired on NTV. It was written by Natasha Likimani with Enos Olik as part of the production team, as I think a cinematographer. And if you don't know who Enos Olik is, I don't know. I don't know, because this man is behind some of the best music videos this country has ever seen. He's behind most of your favorite artists' music videos. Those music videos that you love so much by your faves, Enos Olik is behind them. So the series starts off with just a quick scene of students hanging out in this club. And then it cuts to showing us Mombasa 48 hours prior. So this is where we're quickly introduced to one of the main characters known as Salaton. So Salaton is this boy who is from the coast. He's grown up in the coast. He has a sister known as Nalai, and they are being raised by their uncle and aunt. So it's very clear from the get-go that their aunt doesn't really like them because, she's not their blood auntie. She's married to their uncle. The uncle is now mwenye, ye ndio sasa damu yao kabisa. So the auntie doesn't like that she has to live with these children because to her, they feel like a burden. She can't wait to marry off Nalai and also doesn't like Salaton and wants him to disappear very quickly. So we get to learn that they are orphans and they had to be taken care of by their uncle. I'm guessing the uncle was a sibling to one of their parents. So he's the one who's taking care of them with the help of his wife, who doesn't really like them that much. We are then introduced to Nyokabi, who has a thing with Salaton. So at this point, it's not very established. Where they are in their relationship is not very established, but we see that there's something between them, something romantic, because we're introduced to Nyokabi having or trying to have phone sex with Salaton. And from the onset, it's clear that Yeni Demwa Mungu, because you can see stickers of her being proud of her virginity on her bedroom mirror, and she's even wearing a cross. So it really gets you, it makes you understand that she's, Christian girl and a good girl who wants to wait for marriage. But here she is having phone sex with Salaton. So it's a bit ironical. And I love how they juxtaposed the fact that she's a hypocrite, because at the same time she claims that she's a good Christian lady, but she's still engaging in sexual behavior. After this, we also get to understand that Salaton is HIV positive because her sister is like, oh, by the way, did you tell your girlfriend about your status? After she overhears them clearly talking on the phone. And he's clearly not done that. And he's guilty about his status. And he's guilty that he has a thing with someone who he hasn't really informed about his status. So from there, we are then introduced to the rest of the characters in the story. And this takes place in Nkare University. So Nkare University is like where all the lives of these students and these characters intersect. We're introduced to the rest of the students who go to Nkare University. So we get to be introduced to Wendo. It's her first time on campus, and her brother is the one who is taking her to campus. And he's clearly very overprotective of her and tells her by the way, jichunge, and his famous line, what did he say? What was the line? Funga miguu panua vitabu. Yeah. So, but sasa, Wendo, of course, she's a first year and she's clearly excited to be on campus and to see what the university life holds for her. And then we're also introduced to Nyokabi's roommate, Asha. So from this scene, it's very obvious that Asha is the complete opposite of everything that Nyokabi is. While Nyokabi is the good Christian girl, Asha is your typical, just normal girl who likes to have fun and likes to explore and just be herself. So we're introduced to Asha and her best friend Zena. Once they're introduced to Nyokabi, or once Nyokabi introduces herself, we find out that Asha and Salaton almost had something happen. And so they're very mean with how they went about it. Because they literally just told her, oh yeah, by the way, Salaton and I, we almost. So from the very, very beginning, this makes Nyokabi insecure because she suspects that there was more to the story than what they were telling her. So she's very insecure about her place in Salaton's life. And then we're also introduced to this group known as the Rachels. So the Rachels is this self-proclaimed Christian big sisters of campus. So the whole job is to kazi yao ni kunini, could try and induct the freshers, the female freshers especially, in a safe and Christian way into the university. So the Rachels is basically just Nyokabi and her minions. And they all have this thing where they wear pink for some reason. I guess they're trying to show that they are the most ultra feminine ladies on campus. That's why they wear pink. Yeah, so they basically just walk around trying to recruit other chicks on campus, especially the freshers. So they try to recruit Wendo, but she's clearly not interested in their stuff. She's interested in exploring campus life. And then we also get to be introduced to Eric, who is Nyokabi's younger brother. So Eric is also reporting on his first day at campus. And we get to understand that he's a nerd who likes gaming and stuff like that. But his father pushes him to join the rugby team. And his father is the school's dean. And we also get to understand that his father is the kind who's authoritarian. Naja, these dads when you wanna, all they care about is their family image and watu watasema nini, you know. So he pushes his son to enter the rugby team and to not only join the rugby team, but to take that MVP position, which was currently being held by Salaton. So Salaton is also not only the MVP, he's also the captain of the rugby team called the Nyatis. And here we're also introduced to another character known as Odek, who is also a player in the Nyati's team. So Odek inducts Kina Eric and the other newbies into the team by showing them this deck of cards that he uses to rate the girls of Ankara University. We get to understand that he's this wannabe campus Casanova who, yeah, he's such a tryhard but thinks he's the coolest thing to walk on earth. And yeah, he's this playboy / fuckboy, you know, that thing. Even though he doesn't even honestly look the part. Mimi, I just did not like how he had the audacity to rate women, yet he looks nothing like Brad Pitt. You know, if you're going to carry that kind of audacity around, you better have the face to match. Sasa alikuwa tu na audacity lakini sura haiko. So yeah, he has this list where he has rated most of the women in Ankara University, and then this deck of cards. I guess that's why he's called Odek or something. So he has this deck of cards also that he uses to rate the chicks. So the ace card is those chicks who are like unattainable and stuff. You know, the very, very, the top tier chicks. Then you have the 8s or something. The 8s are just fun to be around, and the 2s are annoying pick-me's or something. So yeah, you get the gist. Each number has its own rank and what it stands for. So see, he's busy inducting these boys higher. So we then go to the base. Now, the base is this place where the students hang out. Because kama umekuwa campus, there's usually a popular spot where everyone just goes to chill. So for these guys, they call it the base. So that's where they go to club. So now everyone is at the base and they're having a good time. The rugby team is there with the newbies. Asha and her best friend are there. Nyokabi is also there. Wendo is there. Like kila mtu ako hapo. Haya. So Nyokabi spots Salaton and she's surprised because Salaton was supposed to tell her that he'd be coming to Nairobi, but he didn't. So she's upset. And then you have Zena, who is really, really drunk at this point, and Asha is trying to take her home, but she won't listen. She wants to keep having a good time. And then you have the rugby boys who are inducting Eric and trying to get him to hit on the girls. So at this point, we get to see how socially awkward Eric is. He's not very good with women and he's just socially awkward. And yeah, they make fun of him and his inability to get chicks. Higher. So as the night goes on, Asha loses sight of Zena. But then she spots Wendo holding Zena's shoe. And then at that point, she's panicked because she can't find her friend and there's a shoe there that belongs to her. So, hey, yeah. And then she panics and calls Zena. But then when she calls her, she picks up. Zena picks up, but then you hear these really, really piercing screams of someone who's clearly being hurt. So the episode ends there. So in the next episode, we learn that Asha actually called the police after that call. So the police arrive at the club and the interrogation starts. And so from then on, the entire series is built around that interrogation. That's how the story is structured. From there, everything builds up from each character being interrogated. Because most of the, actually, I think all the episodes, most of the episodes start with the characters being interrogated or when they're with the police. So the whole story is built now from there, which is one thing I really, really found to be creative, even though I know it's very unrealistic for police to just be called alafu they show up. Kwanza kesika easy. But anyway, I digress. So Asha calls the police, they come, and then we later find out that kumbe Zena was hospitalized and that she's in very, very critical condition. We're also introduced to other supporting characters in the story. We're introduced to Hanifa, who is this boutique owner that sells clothes. Yeah, so she sells clothes and she's friends with Asha and Dada, who also works around the same vicinity as Hanifa, but as what? She works at a nail salon or something. Yeah. So these are Asha's friends. So Hanifa is seeing this guy called Omar, who I think is a delivery guy. Sikuelewa by the ye anafanya kazi gani. I think alikuwa tu mso wa delivery because alikuwa na boda and they took a ride somewhere. Yeah. I didn't quite get his job. I think he was a delivery guy. But anyway, so Dada is struggling to join campus. She doesn't have enough money. So she's struggling to make ends meet ndio aweze kujoin campus. So one of her clients offers her a job opportunity. So the client is played by Jackie Matubia and she sees how Dada is really, really struggling and not really making much. So she tells her, oh yeah, by the way, if you're ready to change your life, just call me higher. And then this is also where we get to see Wendo and Odek's attraction towards each other blossom. And we also learned that Wendo has this list that she's trying to tick off. So it's basically just things that she wants to experiment with. Making out in the library, sijui, what else was there in the list? Having sex in the shower. Just experimental stuff with her sexuality and stuff. And this is also where we see Salaton and Nyokafi try to get intimate, but for some reason they can't. And now this makes Nyokabi very insecure because remember, number one, Salaton lied to her, didn't tell her he had come, kumbe alikuwa ashafika. Number two, the thing with Asha. So now since freshmen have reported, see, of course there has to be a freshers bash. And Nyokabi, being the dean's daughter, is put in charge of the committee responsible for organizing that kabash. And this is also where we learned that apparently Odek is the president of the Students' Council, which is very weird because nothing about him screamed president of Student Council. We really never got to see him in action like that. So it just felt like, oh, by the way, you and your Student Council president, like it just felt like it came out of nowhere. So anyway, they're supposed to plan this freshers bash. And because Nyokabi is the one who's in charge, it becomes this entire snooze fest. It's just a really boring freshers bash. But now Odek, being Odek, infiltrates it and spikes the drinks and everyone gets drunk. So kwa harakati za ulevi, Nyokabi gives Salaton head. But then again, he's not able to finish. Like, inafika point ni kama anashtuka. So he's not able to like finish whatever they started. So again, this is like strike 4. At this point, Nyokabi is like, this nigga, what the fuck? Why? What is wrong with you? At this point, ako strike 4. She's confused as to why Salaton doesn't seem to be as horny as she is. So that's where Salaton drops the bombshell that he's HIV positive. That's not the only bombshell we get. We also learn that Zena has just passed on because Asha gets a call from Zena's parents, so they break the news to her. So by this time, Odek and Wendo have already gotten intimate, and she goes back home, and her brother isn't too happy to see her because it's the next day na hakumwambia alikuwa wapi. So she gets very defensive and, is like trying to just let her brother know that, she's a grown-up and she can make her own decisions, especially around her sex life. And her brother is, of course, shocked. The typical brother who is weird about his younger sister's sexuality. Yeah, very, very weird. Anyway, Salaton then tells Nyokabi the truth about his status and how he got it. So he invites her over to where he works and they have a chat, and he reveals how he got the disease, which was a very, very painful story for him and a very important one, actually. And this is where I'm just like, Nyokabi and reading the room, that chikapana, because how does someone open up to you and reveal such information to you and all you can think of is how they lied to you? Like, they've literally just told you a very heavy and personal and painful part about their lives, but then you somehow manage to make it about you. Yani, that chick, her ability to not read the room and make things about her was mimi alikuwa anani frustrate kusema kweli, cause guy, did you not just listen to what he said? Mtu anakuambia kitu kubwa kai and then you're like, but you bado ulinikosea, sijui nini, you still lied. Like, oh my god. Where that chick was frustrating. Then we have Dada, who decides to give that lady she met a chance. So she goes to her place and then she realizes that, kumbe you're an OnlyFans model. And she takes up the offer. So she starts working as an adult film star on OnlyFans. Then Nyokabi decides to have a fling with this pilot because she's like, since Salaton anitaki, me, I need to get mine. So yeah, she has this thing with this pilot whom she just literally meets at this car restaurant or something. And I wish we got like a lead up to the events that made them even start having sex or something. It just happened. Okay, but I know these things just happen, but I don't know. Wapi lead up? How did it happen? Like, what did they even talk about before it happened, Like, waliongea nini ndio ikafika to that point. But anyway, yeah, she goes ahead and sleeps with the pilot. Then this next episode is where now we start seeing more into just the kind of person Eric is beneath all that nerdiness and gamer boy persona that he has. So we find out that apparently he's into cosplaying. So, he dresses up in this car costume and he has nail polish on, and his dad finds him and he's so pissed at him. Akiwa sura alimpea, oh my god. It was like, sasa hii ni nini nilizaa? Hata afadhali tu tungezaa tu mandazi. It was such a disgusted look. He was so disgusted with him. So yeah, we also find out that he's into porn, and not just the regular porn, the experiential kind of porn, ile ya OnlyFans. And who is he a loyal customer to? None other than Dada, the chick who was struggling to pay for her university fees and then decided to become an OnlyFans model. So he is a very loyal client to Dada. Like, I think you're the most loyal subscriber and pays the most money. And he's very insistent on them meeting. I think the writers here, they were just dropping two hints of what was to come. They were really trying to show us what this character really was about. So in this same episode, Asha organizes a slut walk. So why does she do this? It was in a way to support what had happened to Zena. And also, it was a way to combat the dress code that the school imposed on the students. So after the whole thing with Zena and her death and all that, the school decided to impose a strict dress code. And the thing with dress codes is that they usually affect women the most because we have the most versatile amount of clothing, and also this world just loves to really control women. They just can't help it, So yeah, Asha organizes a slut walk to support Zena and also fight that dress code. So she tells people to wear their 2 mini skirts and come out. And I think they were trying to reference the My Dress, My Choice protest that happened almost, I think, 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. I think they're trying to reference that with that slut walk / protest. So in this protest, she announces that she will be running for school president. And guess who's not very happy about that announcement? Nyokabi, because she also wants that position. So the police are called for some reason. Police were called to disrupt a university protest that was purely internal and that was taking place inside the university, literally not disrupting the outside. I didn't get that. Why? Mbona polisi waitwe kwa protest ya uni students yenye iko ndani ya shule? It was happening within the school grounds, not outside. What the hell? What was that about? But anyway, so someone somewhere called the police and they came and attacked again the students. That was weird. That was really weird. Because it was within the school. Najege kwa nje, unaelewa. But ndani ya shule, huh? That was strange. That did not make sense. But anyway, I digress. So because of this slut walk that Asha had, she ends up losing her radio gig at the campus radio. Wendo and Odek are, having trouble in paradise because Odek can't handle the fact that Wendo is not really monogamous, because she has this whole list and she's all about experimenting and just living her life. So Odek doesn't take that too well because, these dudes can never dish out. They can never take what they dish out. So because he clearly has feelings for her, he wanted monogamy, but Wendo wasn't about that life. She was about experimenting and about her wow checklist. So he was very upset. And then in this same episode, Nyokabi's photos of her giving Salaton head are leaked around the school. And of course, it's embarrassing. She's embarrassed and all. So Salaton goes to see her, and to patch things up, they finally get intimate. And in this same episode, you also have Nalai being married off. And in this same episode, you have Omar proposing to Hanifa, but she's not really ready for marriage, so she freaks out and ghosts him. So this episode had a lot of key moments, a lot of key moments. So in this next episode, we have the presidential debate. So all the opponents are there and they're trying to make their case known to the rest of the school. So you have Nyokabi, Asha, and Julie, who is one of the Rachels. Now, Julie tries to start her debate, but she is shamed by the rest of the students because photos of her going to the clinic to get an STD test were also leaked. So, of course, since she's one of the Rachels, people are like, she's a hypocrite. So Asha stands up for her and gets people to stop bullying her. And Nyokabi supports Asha and actually declares that she supports her in running for the school president. So you have Odek and Wendo who decide to now become a thing, an official thing, because Odek proposes to Wendo on the campus grounds, and it's this whole thing. He goes on this whole confession about, oh, you make me want to be a better man and blah, 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 blah. And he gives her the ACE card. Remember, the ACE card is for those chicks who are unattainable. So now, finally, Odek was ready to commit. And to be honest, I was surprised that Wendo was also... I was surprised that she accepted to be his girlfriend, because to me, she seemed like someone who really didn't want anything serious, any attachments. She just wanted to experiment. So this was surprising to me, to be honest. I didn't expect her to say yes. But then, the biggest bombshell of the episode. Okay, it wasn't the biggest, but I'd say the second biggest. I'm not going to tell you the biggest bombshell. You're going to have to watch it for yourselves because I don't want to spoil it for you. So, the bombshell, the second biggest bombshell of this episode is that Nyokabi might just have a little stranger in her body. So how does she find this out? After the debate, her and Asha are debriefing in their hostel, and Asha borrows her tampons. So Asha is like, oh, but since we have been roommates for this past few months, our periods are probably synced up by now. And yours should also be coming soon, right? And then Nyokabi is like, yeah, but I haven't seen my period in a while. And then, yeah, that's when it hits her that she might just be pregnant. Yeah. Yeah. The other bombshell, I am not going to spoil it for you. You're just going to have to see it for yourself. So finally, the series now ends with us now getting a glimpse into now how everything led up to Zena's death and whoever was involved. Again, that is all I am going to say about Zena's case. I'm not going to say anything more. Kutoka hapo. So finally, Dada agrees to meet with Eric, because all along Eric had been pestering to see her. When can I see you? When can I see you? So he was really adamant about seeing her, because he had been spoiling her with gifts, and he even bought her a phone when she got robbed. So he really, wanted to see her. So they go on a date, and while they're on the date, guess who is serving them? Salaton. So Eric, of course, anashtuka kuona Salaton, because remember, Salaton is kind of his rival, because he's also gunning for the MVP position, and he's basically just trying to dethrone Salaton. So Salaton ni rival wake kiplani. Na pia, I think he didn't want Salaton to see him on a date with Dada. Yeah, I'm not going to say why I think so. Again, that's because I'll be spoiling things for you. So itabidi tu we uende uone ndio ujue kwa nini. I'ma leave it at that. So this last episode is kind of just tying everything together. Hanifa and Omar made up. You have the Nyatis winning the championship or something. You have Nyokabi going to get the official pregnancy test to confirm whether she's really pregnant. Turns out she is. And then you have Nalai missing. So of course the entire community is trying to find her because she ran away to avoid getting married off by her aunt. So Nyokabi decides to go and tell Salaton the big news. So Salaton at this point ako hosi because he had an injury on his shoulder that progressively got worse, especially when they were playing their final game. Aliumia vibaya. So sai ako hosi amelazwa hosi. And at this point in Salaton's life, things are falling apart. Vibaya sana. His rugby career iko in jeopardy. His scholarship pia ndio hiyo iko in jeopardy. Ndio hiyo tena sister yake is missing, but at this point he still doesn't know that yet. But you can just imagine akikuja kujua vile vitu zitakuwa. Remember, they are not from a very well-off family, so he also has that burden. Like, akona tu mashida nyingi. Then this babe decides, now would be the perfect time to tell this dude, I might be carrying his child. Where? Maybe I felt so bad for him at that moment. Because imagine all that shit is happening in your life at once. And then you find out you're going to be a parent. Si uneza cheesy. Mimi, hey, I low-key hope he denies that baby, to be honest. Because that sidhani ni wake. If you're being real, I don't think that kid is his. It's probably the pilot's. It's most likely the pilot's. Like, ugh. But imagine all that shit happening and then this. Like Nyokabi and the way she just never reads the room. Oh my God. Wah. But yeah, so she gives him the big news and the story ends there. Again, no spoilers from me. Story haishi hapo, but I do not want to give any spoilers. Itabidi you go, see for yourself, and then pia wewe ujione tu vile ilikuwa. Because I am not going to say anything past that. So, let's get into the review. Now, if you're not new here, if you've watched any reviews that I've done of films, you know how we do it. We always like to give a step-by-step review of all of the components of the film, the writing, the casting, the acting, the sound, the whatnot. Yeah, this will be no different. But first, I'm going to start with what they got right. So, I loved that the soundtrack was mostly a Kenyan soundtrack. You had songs by Nikita Kering. She actually did the main theme song for the show. Songs by Mbidi, Bridget Blue, Charisma, Sophia Nzau, and Okelo Max. I loved it. I loved the soundtrack. Another thing I loved, the cinematography and the production. Hapo, nayo, they did their big one. Hapo, I will not lie. I am a hater, but a very ethical one. I will always give credit where credit is due. And for this case, they did so good with the production and the cinematography. Something else that I really liked and that stood out to me is that they tried to incorporate relevant cultural themes within Gen Z and the last 5 to 10 years. Like cosplaying, gaming, ideas on feminism and slut-shaming / rape culture, internet culture with the whole OnlyFans thing. So at least they tried to incorporate things that have been happening that are relevant to Gen Z between the time that we were teenagers up to now as young adults. So let's start with the writing. For the writing, I will give them a 4 out of 10. Here's why. This is what they got right. Number one, I liked the way the story was structured around the investigation of Zena's death and the events that happened prior and after. Like I said before, one thing you'll notice when you watch the series is that each episode started with a character being interrogated because the story was happening around Zena's death. Everything kind of built up from there. So I really liked it because it was like, first wanaanza na hiyo the present, because the present was really just kind of Zena's death, and then warudi nyuma kidogo to show you how it unfolded. You just need to see it to get what I'm saying. The way that story was built around that interrogation was really nice. It was very creative. Another thing I liked is that there was character development with someone like Odek, who went from being the campus Casanova / wannabe playboy to someone who is now interested in commitment with Wendo. You have Wendo's brother, who went from being the overprotective and controlling older brother to now the understanding older brother who just wants to help her sister out with her sexual life. You have Nyokabi. Nyokabi. Nyokabi yake, wa? It was a fall from grace, but character development ilikuwa nonetheless. She went from this uptight, wannabe, self-righteous Christian chick to just accepting herself and her sexuality and that she's horny as hell like the rest of the population at Enkare. But then, her pregnancy, But anyway, I liked how her character developed towards the end. She might have not made the smartest decisions, but hey, we live and we learn, Another person who I felt had character development was Julie. Julie, who was one of the Rachels who now contested for the presidential seat for the Students' Council. She went from being a follower of Nyokabi to someone who also embraced her sexuality and also went for what she wanted, which was a leadership position. So I feel like that was good character development. Something else that I gave them a thumbs up for when it came to the writing was that they touched on difficult and often overlooked topics. For example, the incel epidemic and how it leads to femicide. I feel like that was it was relevant to the times that we are living in, with the internet being such a huge thing, with it being what it is and a very key part of our lives. I felt like that was an important thing. I also liked how they touched on child's sexual assault and its effects with Salaton's character. And I loved that they revealed that, sometimes women can be predators. It's not just men who are predatory towards kids, but women as well. And that child sexual assault has effects because we saw how it affected Salaton and how that trauma that he was left with affected how he navigated his sexual life, because he was very scared to have sex, which is very understandable because that's how he contracted the disease actually. So when it comes to the misses, first and foremost, the uni in this show, Enkare University, doesn't exist in Kenya. It's a very unrealistic depiction of the average uni life. And here's why. Number one, what is Anganya casually doing in a school compound? I have never seen Anganya in a school compound. I kid you not. Like, how? Nganya kwa school compound? Not even at UN. Like, nah, that was quite unrealistic. Another thing, those hostels were so big. They're the size of a hotel suite. And they were en suite. Like, hostels gani is also going suite. Hata za USIU hazikuangi en suite, mind you. And USIU is supposed to be like one of the most expensive unis you can go to. Even they don't have hostels that big and hostels that are en suite. Ama hiyo hostel ni ya wapi? Mi mtu aniambie hiyo hostel ni ya uni gani hiyo yenye kwa en suite na ni kubwa hivo. I'd really love to know, because where they are living, they are really living. Another thing that made that university unrealistic, a strip club at a joint that's supposedly for university students. Na hiyo club ilikuwa inaka safi. Like, that joint was too high end for the average campus student in Kenya. I know it's suspension of disbelief, but please, mstubebe ufala hata kama ni suspension of disbelief. jameni, mlitubeba ufala sana. Like, that club was so high-end for it to be for uni students. Honestly. It was clean. Like, inakatu safi. Like, this really high-end club. Like, even at USIU, like, if you know, you know. Tots, the dingiest club, the popular joints around that area were very dingy. At best, we had Memphis, which wasn't even all that, to be honest. So to see a joint for campus students that looks like that, hiyo base yao, hapana. Then, I felt like they're trying too hard to mimic the American high school life with that Nkari University. Like the Rachels are a direct replica of the plastics. So if you've watched this movie, there's this movie called Mean Girls. It's an American movie and it's basically just about high school life and navigating high school life. So you have this group called the Plastics. So it's this trio of the popular girls at school when you're hao ndio kusema kwa shule, and they have their head called Regina George. The Rachels were just a replica of that because they also had their head who was Nyokabi. Hao ndio walikuwa najiona the campus big sisters. They were also wearing pink and this colorful ninis, just like the Plastics. So I need you to go and watch that movie for you to understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't, if you have, I'm pretty sure you understand what I'm talking about. Also, this thing of having the head, the boss of the girls in the school date the popular player. It's also like such an American trope. I don't think Kenya tuko na vitu ka hizo. Yeah, Kenya hatuna vitu ka hizo campus ati the head girl or the popular girl on campus ati ndo ana date the popular player. That's such an American trope, an American high school trope at that. I personally have never seen that. It just didn't speak to the Kenyan uni experience. It was too Americanized. Tropes nyingi zilikuwa za US, like even with the whole nyatis and having their list of rating the girls at the school, like it felt very American. Also, speaking of nyatis, what rugby club looks like that? Like those dudes looked very unfit to be rugby players. I wasn't buying that. I wasn't buying that at all at the rugby players. Hawakuwa rugby players hao. Na hizo vitambi, no. So another thing that I found off with the writing is that the Kenyan police were that involved in a case, that dedicated and involved to even carry out interrogations and to show up immediately they are called. Which Kenyan police, certainly not the Kenya that I live in, which Kenyan police is going to be that involved in a case, especially a femicide case? Kama kuna kesi, polisi hata washughulikangi nazo ni hizo. Femicide, GBV, rape, they don't give a shit about such cases. In fact, they think that the victims deserved it most of the time. You go to a police station, you report these cases that I've just mentioned, and they'll just look at you like, saa mwanamke anatupotezea wakati kwa nini? So for them to show ati polisi walikuja on time, and then they start interrogating, that one, no. Absolutely no. Very unrealistic. Again, very, very unrealistic. Something else that was off is Hanifa and Omar. Like, what was the significance of those two? What was the significance of their storyline? I really didn't get their importance. They were very forgettable. Very, very forgettable, to be honest. Like, sijui kwa nini walikuwa hapo. There was just a waste of space, to be honest. Like, yeah. We could have really done without them. Another thing that didn't make sense, Odek's proposal to Wendo. Why? Were they getting engaged? Since when do boyfriends propose to girlfriends and on their knees? Like, mi ndio sijui mambo za mapenzi. Mi ndio sijui mambo ya mapenzi, labda. But hapo, no, zi. Another thing, Nyokabi's sister felt misplaced. Like she doesn't even belong in that family. It felt like she felt adopted. She didn't look like them. She just felt like out of place with that family, to be honest. Huyo sister yao didn't feel like sister yao, the youngest child of the family. She didn't feel like she belonged in that family. It's like she was adopted. Amalia kwa last minute. Hata sijui. Another thing that pissed me off is how they completely disregarded the Shuga universe. Now, one thing you need to know about Shuga, the Shuga franchise, these characters usually are connected from one country to the other. Like for the Kenyan one, the ones who were in the very, very first Shuga, some of the characters made it to the second season. Like it was like a continuation. Now walikuwa na their own stories in the second season. Then when it went to Nigeria, we followed one of the characters from the Kenyan series. That was Nick Mutuma's character. We followed his character while he was in Nigeria. Then from there, when it went to the South African version, we followed one of the Nigerian characters' story into the South African version. Like, kuna kwanga na hiyo continuation. It's like a cinematic universe. You see how you have MCU? It's the same thing for Shuga. Characters from different franchises usually come to the other one to like kuendeleza. So they become part of the story in a way. They continue their story, even if it'll be for like 1 or 2 episodes, but they'll still show up. Then, apart from that failing to connect characters from previous franchises into the story, another thing they didn't do is the celebrity appearances. One thing again you should know about Shuga is the celebrity appearances that are in the show. So the first Shuga had celebrity appearances from Kina Nonini, Kina P Unit, Kina Jimmy Gate. You know, back then they were a big deal. Kina Giuliani, Kina Size 8. It had appearances from those musicians. Then the second one had Avril. Then when it went to Nigeria, we had Tiwa Savage making an appearance. Then when it went to South Africa, we had Vanessa Mdee making an appearance. So kuna kwanga na hiyo kanini, that ka celebrity cameos or something. So they can become a character or So kwa hii ya Shuga Mashariki, all we got was Botros Munene. Like, I expected more celebrity appearances just to maintain the vibe of Shuga, because that's the vibe that it has. You have like celebrities who make appearances, and they can even be like characters within the story. So I expected that, and they didn't do that. So I was really disappointed. And then finally, there was too much telling and not enough showing when it came to the sex education bit. If you've watched my review of Disconnect, I talked about this at length. How Kenyans really are not very good when it comes to showing. They like to tell a lot. Like, wanakuambia through dialogue. Wanapenda tu kukuambia sana. So with this one, when it came to the sex ed bits, because again, it's a show about responsible sexual behavior, there has to be some elements of sexual education. It felt like a PSA. Some of the dialogue just felt like I was watching a PSA. For example, mtu anauliza mwingine, what's that? What's PrEP, for example? PrEP is something that you take to minimize the risks of you contracting HIV. Like, anamweleza ni kama mwalimu anafunza. As in, I need more showing, less telling. Because it just feels like an ad sometimes. Like, yeah. So, the pill is something you take to prevent pregnancy. Sijui nini, 3 days, and I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, make it stop. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you are a Kenyan writer, please show more than you tell. It goes a really long way. Don't make the scene feel like an ad, please. But yeah, that was it for the writing. Now for the casting, I gave them a 7 out of 10. It was refreshing to see new faces and a few seasoned actors like Nyokabi's dad, who played a character in Mother-in-Law that I don't know if it still airs on Citizen, but yeah, that show is just meka sana. And Jackie Matubia, and also Salaton's aunt. I just can't remember where I saw her, but her face is kind of familiar. Now the characters who I felt were well cast, Nyokabi. Nyokabi is a great actress. Sarah Muihaki is a great actress. A really good actress. She knows how to convey emotions with her face without saying a word. She knows how to act with her eyes. One of the ways you can tell someone is really good at acting, they act with their eyes. That chick can act. She has a very bright future ahead of her. Can't wait to see what else she's in. Nyokabi's dad was also well cast, played the role of the authoritarian father very well. Salaton was well cast as well. He was very, very well cast, very believable. Nalai, also very believable. Salaton's aunt, very believable again, with the evil relative thing. Asha was also well cast, in my opinion. Same to Odek, Wendo, and Wendo's brother. Now, Wendo's brother was played by Maina Kabugi, who was in Machachari as, I think his character's name was Kevin or something. Yeah, he was in Machachari. He knows how to play that role of the hardcore ghetto survivor kind of guy, but I really want to see him in more diverse roles. I want to see him play something else outside of that, because I feel like he's always playing that role of the bad boy who is a survivor. He's the streets. I'd like to see him in a different role, like a different light. And someone who was also well cast is Dada. She really brought out that naivety very well. Like, it was very, believable. Nonanya huyu kama alikuja Nairobi jana. She brought out that naivety that her character had very well. So when it comes to the soundtrack, like I said before, it was great. 10 out of 10. I love that it featured mostly Kenyan artists and other African artists as well. But I love that they kept it mostly Kenyan. Yes, that is what we need. And I love that music was matched to the scene. Whatever was happening in the scene, the music matched the action. I love it when that happens. I love it. Production as usual, 10 out of 10. Here, I'm not even disputing. It's a fact. Enos Olik did his big one, as well as the directors. That series was visually stunning. Stunning. And yeah, that's it for my review. Now, whether or not this is the worst Kenyan series to ever hit our screens, I don't think so. Of course, it had its flaws, like I've outlined all of them, but there's always room for improvement. That's the thing. There is always room for improvement, especially with the writing. We really need to learn how to show more and tell less. Yeah, but all in all, that was it for me. That was just my quick and honest opinion of Shuga Mashariki. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please share your comments. I really, really want to know what you thought about this episode. And if you watched Shuga Mashariki, I want to know your thoughts as well. Feel free to share this episode and stay tuned for the next one. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's continue to keep it real and raw right here on the Raw Pod with me, Renee Were.